Just one of the best intros to a song. I just love that.
Yeah, definitely. But hey, I'm Steven Schinder, and that's Dan Schinder, my dad. And
Oh, that's right. We are related. I almost said no relation.
Yeah, it would be quite something if we were two people who just so happened to have the last name Schinder, which would be kind of rare to find, I would think.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Right. But for those who we posted about this, updating things. But for those who don't know, we were gonna have Jon Anderson on the show at this time, but then we got a message saying we
He
need
saw
to
our interview with Andy and said, "Screw it." Basically, no, just kidding.
No.
They actually shared that interview to John's page, which we greatly appreciate. That was real sweet.
Yeah. And so I think what happened was Jon probably needed more time. They just finished touring and maybe he needs a bit more time to feel up to it for the interview. But his PR said they'll let us know soon about availability. So we'll keep y'all posted on all of that. But we didn't want to leave y'all hanging. So in the meantime, we're talking about Jon's 1994 album, Change We Must. It came out October 17th that year. So we're celebrating a bit early because of, scheduling stuff on our end as well. And it's also, I had this topic in the back of my mind for a while thinking, okay, we should save this for Jon's birthday. We'll talk about it then and also read people's comments about what other songs they'd like to see with an orchestra. But I figured, I think we both figured that since the list can be long, maybe it's good to split those into 2 episodes. So we'll talk about Change We Must here. And on the 25th, we'll read people's lists. So right here is the question. What are other songs that Jon was involved with? Could be in Yes or outside of Yes. That would be your dream Jon Anderson symphonic set list. So
I'm going to say Magnification.
Magnification, yeah. Yeah, so if that's longer than an album, a live show set list. So you could include stuff for Magnification if you want, but like you could even add like what are some things you like reinterpreted with an orchestra. It could be from Yes, could be from Jon's solo stuff, could be from his collaborations, Jon Evangelis, Anderson Stolt, maybe even True. Like I don't know,
Ooh. Yeah, because there is some orchestration on that. Interesting. And for those who don't know, Hearts is on this album that we're talking about, which sounds great.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and read the track list real quick. So we have 12 tracks here. State of Independence, which was a Jon Evangelis song originally. Shaker Loops, which is new to the album. Hearts, which you mentioned, and is a bit of an abbreviated version. It cuts out the "Who would believe you wise men do,"
right?
Which to be fair, on the original Yes song, it did feel like kind of a sharp turn, but we're kind of used to that with Yes music, so I can understand abbreviating it here.
Yeah,
and then we have Alive and Well, which, if I remember right, is all instrumental and was new to this album. Then we have The Kiss, which really takes its time with the instrumental parts before Jon comes in singing. We got Chagall Duet, which is a nice, as you can guess, duet between Jon and Sandrine Piau. It sounds so beautiful, so operatic. And then Candle Song, which was which was a reinterpretation of Jon Evangelis as Anyone Can Light a Candle. Then a View from the, how do you pronounce that? Capiche or Capice? Or
I think it's Capice.
A Capice.
Or unless it's Italian, it might be Capiche.
Oh, maybe. And then Hurry Home, which is from his 88 In the City of Angels album. Under the Sun, which is a reworking of another song from that album titled It's on Fire. And then ending with Change We Must, which he had worked on with Jon Evangelis, but the Jon Evangelis version wouldn't get released until the 1998 alternate version of their Page of Life album. So Was this album on your radar around the time it came out, Dad, or was it something
It
that came to your attention much later?
it came to my attention later, because we were working on You Being Born, and that
Yeah,
took a lot
the
of my
next one.
attention. Yeah. Yeah, you were born not long after this.
Yeah, turning
Um,
30 next month as well, and,
yeah.
maybe change I must at
No,
30,
I
I
don't
mean
change anything about yourself. You're wonderful.
right.
No, it wasn't. It came much later, and, I think it might be the most what do you think? I think it's the most different of all Jon Anderson solo albums.
Mm. Yeah, I don't
Is
know
very
'cau
different, but I wouldn't call that a solo album.
yeah, I don't know because he's done very different stuff. The More You Know was like house music.
Yeah, that's true.
DeSalle had, you know, he's done like more Latin American stuff.
Yeah, good point.
This bits of it, this kind of sounded similar to the song he did with Kataro, Island of Life. Like
I was
Change
gonna
We Must
mention that. I
kind of
love
has
the
that.
song on that.
Yeah, it kinda has that vibe, the way the vocals are, and it's just so beautiful. Like, back in, 2008 or around then is when I became aware of this album, and it was around the time I was getting into other prog bands as well. But, at that age, 13 going into 14, it was sort of a time where maybe 2007 as well. It was a time where I was discovering some of the stuff that John did outside of Yes, and they're like such beautiful songs. Like I mentioned, Island of Life and Change We Must, and some other things where when you listen to them, it's like at that time in my life there was this longing for a world where everything is at peace and harmony, and nature is thriving. It sounds really out there, but it really was kind of an awakening that time, wanting that type of a spiritual harmony in a world that was so chaotic and is still somewhat chaotic.
Yeah, absolutely, especially now. Um, the the song, "Run On John" is also a beautiful, instrumental, and I must admit, I'm not familiar, with other work by, uh, I'm forgetting the first name, Mr. Tolley, who he did this with.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm
Um,
not so
I
sure either.
I think that's who did the orchestration, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to look real quick. Now I don't see his name, whereas before I did. But
Yeah,
it's beautifully done. It's a great album, and it makes me wonder because I don't remember exactly the story, but I wonder if this.
oh, Tim Handley is who did the or
Oh,
wait,
okay,
Tim Handley and Jeffrey Alexander did some orchestration.
okay,
Tim Handley is listed as a producer, so
okay.
but I do see Tolley's name in the credits. Trying to yeah, I'll see what I can find. But what were you saying?
I was saying I wonder if this album is what led to Yes doing magnification the way they did without
Oh,
a
yeah.
keyboard player.
Okay, so yeah, and I looked up the person's name, David Tolley, but
Yeah, that's right, David.
yeah, but at this time, the year before this, there was that sort of strange album, symphonic music of Yes, and
Yeah,
John did guest on that, and Steve and Bill were on it, but I think later on, Magnification and Symphonic Live were more of a perfected version of the idea of a Yes music orchestra type album. But yeah, I'm sure that those ideas of working with an orchestra were kicking around with John and maybe some of the other people, and so he went and did this album, which came out a year after Symphonic Music of Yes.
yeah.
And I think the results here resonate better for me.
Yeah, yeah, and, clearly that other project well, not clearly, but probably had an influence on him to do this.
Yeah. Like I think even back then he was talking about how there were some Yes songs or Yes albums he think would be cool to do within orchestra. And of course, Time and a Word, their second album had an orchestra, and there were some depending on which member you ask, maybe they're different reception for that. But that idea of Yes music within orchestra, it's such a tempting idea. And to also do that with some of his other works and also put out some new songs on this album. It's a nice mix of old and new on this album.
Right. Oh, and Marie says, I'm a big fan of the music. That's great. It's really a great album. And I wonder if John went right to Hearts or if he tossed around maybe doing something with other Yes songs as well, or instead of.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Because I'm sure there are probably some other things he considered, like maybe the epics, and then maybe someone told him, well, that would take up a huge chunk of the album type
Right.
thing. You know?
Which is
Um,
okay because we got that years later on the Magnification tour.
yeah, yeah. And I watched this little promo thing for the album that's on YouTube. And it seems like there was a tour being planned for this album for February of '95, but
Really?
I'm not so sure that that tour ended up happening. I think maybe some of the reshuffling with Yes, going from the talk line up to the keys line, maybe that might have gotten in the way, because I vaguely remember reading something from the '90s where a tour was planned for John, and then it got canceled or delayed or something. So I'm not sure if that tour actually
Yeah.
happened. But
Well, I think the way to check one way is if it happened, there's got to be bootleg stuff out there. So if you could find that, then you know it happened. If you can't, it probably didn't. By the way, can you hear all that noise or no? Hopefully not.
I don't hear anything.
Okay, good. They're working on the house. I totally
Okay,
I'm like so used to it now. I didn't even think about it.
right. But yeah, this is the album cover. What do you think of this album cover?
It's interesting. That's what I think of it. It's not what I would have expected. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Um, but it's interesting. I don't not like it. Um, I think it's a little busy, but I love the young photo of him there from back then.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a really good shot of him there.
yeah,
Yeah, I never really fully examined the cover art as much as I have for this episode, and it does feel kind of the time. I think there are some other albums in like the early mid '90s where you have like vignettes sort of put together in this
and collages,
fashion. Yeah, and it kind of looks like it could be like either a white paintbrush at the edges or maybe like the edge of a page or something. There's
Yeah, that's what I thought. Torn paper.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you got like the instrument there. So I do think there are some good elements on this. If it came out today, though, maybe the presentation would be a bit different, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. You never know. Yeah. But,
Yeah.
it's a great album. I can't believe it's 30 years old. I can't believe you're about to turn 30. That's just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So, what would you say are the like standout titles, if anything? I know it's like hard to
Um,
choose from what's on here.
yeah, Hearts, I love how Hearts came out. State of Independence sounds great. Shaker Loops is very interesting. Um, The Kiss, and I love Candle Song as well. Those are all probably my favorites. And Hurry Home, that short instrumental. I mean, not Hurry Home, Run On John.
Oh yeah, there's some beautiful piano on that too.
Yeah. How about
Um,
you?
Yeah, well, for me, it's always been the title track that's been my all-time favorite of this album. But I found that on this listen, I was also really drawn to the stretch of like they're all great, but the ones that I was sort of paying more attention to were this stretch of tracks in the middle, Alive and Well, The Kiss, and Chagall duet, and Run on
Mhm.
John. I think because they're kind of different from some of the other stuff I uh, tend to listen to from Jon or remember from Jon. And so it's always nice to rediscover when there's this material that really played with like other things I wasn't as familiar with.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a great album.
Yeah. And I think the next one after this, it would have been Angel's Embrace, which is like very new agey. Like I think on this album you get hints of new age, especially on the title track. But
Yeah.
yeah, like the title track was one of those things, one of those songs like that, and some John and Vangelis stuff that, and Kitaro as well, that got me more interested in new age when I was just in middle school, which is funny to think about.
This might be the only album I can think of where the title track is last, other than is the song Close to the Edge first or is Siberian Kachoo first? I don't even
It's
remember.
first on the album.
So it is first on the album. So this might be the only album where the title track's absolutely the last track. I don't think I can recall any other album by anybody like that I know of.
Right. Yeah, I'm running through the Yes albums in my head. I know there's one of the later ones, the title track is second to last, but I can't quite remember if there's one where the
Which one is
title track
that?
is Mirror to the Sky. Well, second to last on the main track list, that is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
Interesting.
yeah.
I wonder
Oh, of
what.
course, Time and a Word. That was the final track on that album.
Oh, I've heard of that.
And it had an orchestra.
Yeah, how funny. I wonder what the thinking was on this, if it just happened to feel better as the track distribution laid out, or if there was some other reason.
Yeah, well, to me, it definitely feels like a strong finale for the album. Starting with State of Independence, that's a nice pace to it. So
Yeah,
something to grab people's attention. And then because of the overall tone of this album, I think ending it with something that's beautifully grandiose with the melodies that it has, like Change We Must, I think that makes sense as a closer for the album.
cool.
Yeah.
It's great though. Highly recommend if you're a Jon Anderson fan, you've got to get this.
Yeah, for sure. And folks, like we mentioned off the top, send us in what's your dream Jon Anderson symphonic set list, like within orchestra, and it could be from Yes, from his solo stuff, from his collaborations with other people. You can include any of that and send the lists into us. You can comment below this video, and I'll keep an eye out, or you could email us via yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also, in the lead up to his birthday, we'll post promos and you can comment there as well. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for those things. You could even message us on Facebook. We're at Yesshift, and we're also at Yesshift on YouTube. And
Anchor.fm/Yesshift as well.
yeah, you
If you
can
don't
listen
want to look at us or see pictures or video clips, if you're just an audio listener.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm real excited to see what people's lists are.
Yeah.
And and like I said, we'll keep you posted when we get an update on when Jon Anderson can come on. Um so yeah, that'll be very exciting. So keep an eye out for that, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Have we pretty much covered it,
Yeah.
Dad, or is there anything else you want to
No,
add?
I think we covered it. Great album. Give it a listen if you're not familiar with it, folks, and buy it.
Yeah, for
Buy
sure.
it. That's good for musicians when you buy their stuff.
Yeah. All right. Thanks,
Cool.
everyone.
Thanks,
See you all.
everyone.